It is now looking increasingly likely that the trial of President Uhuru Kenyatta may start in February next year. That is, if the UN Security Council does not defer it for a year. ICC Chief Prosecutor Fatou Bensouda has in the last few hours filed an application saying she has no problem with the trial date being postponed to February. Let's now bring in the victim's lawyer, Fegal Gaynor. He's joining us from our I&M studios. He is the victim's lawyer. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm hoping you can see him probably on a split screen with us as well.
Good evening.
Sir, can you hear me? There
yes,
we go.
I can hear you, yes.
There we go. Thank you so much for joining us on KTN Prime tonight. Fegal Gaynor, victims representative there, joining us on KTN Prime. Let's start with the victims first of all. How many victims are you representing in this case?
Well, I'm representing the victims in case 2, which is the case of Uhuru Kenyatta, and that concerns all of those who were expelled from Naivasha and Nakuru on certain days in January of 2008. And our best estimate is that that figure is around 20,000 people. That includes all of those who were forcibly displaced, as well as the women who were raped, the people who were attacked with pangas, the people whose houses were burnt down. It includes all of those.
All right, so the chief prosecutor says she has no problem with that date being moved to February 2014. However, you seem to have a problem with that. Why is it so important for you that this case begins in November this year?
It's been 4 years since the prosecutor was authorized to begin investigations in Kenya. It's been 2.5 years since Mr. Kenyatta was first summoned to appear at The Hague, and it's been 1.5 years since he was committed for trial. A lot of time has passed, and let's not forget that it's almost 6 years since the crimes themselves took place. Now, if trial begins in February, as you mentioned earlier, looks increasingly likely, that means over 2 years will have passed since the accused was committed for trial, and that's an awful long time. There have already been 2 postponements this year. The victims are expecting trial to begin in April, and then the trial start date was put back to July, and then it was put back to November. So it's up to the trial chamber to rule. It's not up to the prosecutor to choose the start date for trial. It's up to the judges to do that. But it is deeply disappointing, I think, for the thousands of victims who have been waiting so long for justice that they are now it looks increasingly likely that they will have to wait a couple more months, subject, of course, to the decision of the trial chamber.
All right, I'll bring you back to that aspect where you're saying it's been a lot of time. But the prosecution says the witness presentation plans have had to be revised. They need more time to organize and prepare their case. Surely they would want to go into this case knowing they are prepared.
Absolutely, and I think what the victims would want is an effective prosecution, a well-organized prosecution. They want the judges to hear the best evidence that's available in the circumstances. So they will certainly support a good prosecution, but nevertheless, I will fully understand if I hear from them in the next few days expressions of deep frustration, expressions of deep disappointment, because they have made those expressions to me in the past. And they're also looking at what's happening before the UN Security Council, and it's time to reassure them that we will do all that we can do to make sure that the trial starts as soon as possible, so that the defence has the opportunity to test the prosecution's evidence fairly, and all parties have an opportunity for this fair trial to begin, and for it to begin as soon as possible.
All right, so the prosecution again says that they may need more time to get the witnesses in court. They may have problems securing attendance of replacement witnesses at relatively short notice. What do you have to say about that?
I used to be a prosecutor myself. Getting witnesses together where witnesses live sometimes on a totally different continent to where the trial is taking place is logistically difficult. It's certainly part of the challenges of an effective prosecution. I think the prosecution have drawn attention already to the fact that the trial chamber's decision to postpone hearing a certain category of key witnesses until February, that decision of the trial chamber itself lies essentially at the heart of many of these problems. It is deeply disappointing that sequence of events has taken place. Of course, we're all, what should we say, sympathetic to the logistical issues involved, but the victims would have expected trial to have begun by now, nevertheless.
Right, Fergal Gaynor, the victim's lawyer, thank you so much for speaking to KTN Prime and, of course, helping us to understand the reasons why you oppose the moving of the trial date of President Uhuru Kenyatta from November 2013 to February 2014.